Today I wanted to talk about why is KFC not KFC? KFC stands for Kentucky Fried Chicken and KFC stands for Kakamega Fried Chicken. So the question I'm asking, why is KFC not KFC? Why is Kentucky Fried Chicken not Kakamega Fried Chicken? This is what I'm referring to. Of late, you may have noticed the entrance of numerous American food brands into Kenya. These American brands are exceedingly popular amongst Kenyan men. You will find people boasting that they buy food at KFC, that they're taking their money to the American brand. And in fact, of late, there has been increasing demand by Kenyans that McDonald's should also enter the market. I want you to think about that. I want to discuss this culture that demands foreign brands make entry into the country as if this is a good thing, as if this is something worth pushing for or boasting about. I want you to think about that. Kenyan men are crying to be conquered by foreign corporations. This is a very effeminate behavior. The idea, the desire to be dominated, to be conquered, to be controlled, to be penetrated is very effeminate. So Kenyan men are very effeminate. Most African men are very feminized. This is the only way that the continued. So when it comes to masculinity and the prosperity of a nation, we find that the most masculine of nations also are the most richest of nations. In countries where men want to conquer other men, want to conquer new territories, want to conquer new things, those countries tend to be extremely wealthy. And in countries where men are very effeminate, we also tend to have very high levels of poverty because effeminate men don't desire to conquer, don't desire to control, don't desire to penetrate. In fact, the reverse is true. They desire to be conquered. They desire to be controlled. They desire to be dominated. They desire to be penetrated. This is why Kenyan men are demanding that McDonald's make entry into the market. Instead of them thinking the way they can form their own corporate brands, their own products, and go around other countries and conquer with them, they think in the reverse in terms of being conquered. And so whoever is doing the conquering ends up becoming rich because they make all the money. And whoever is getting conquered loses wealth. Corporations and brands are like an army that you send into new territories to control and dominate. The more corporations you have, the more brands you have, the more products you produce, the more likely you'll become rich as a nation. Now, rich countries have set a very clear example of how to create wealth. So you keep on wondering, why can the men of Kenya look at the rich countries and simply copy paste? If they have many brands, you create many brands. If they have many products, you create many products. If they have many corporates, you create many corporates. It's really very simple. It is as simple as that. So instead of desiring to be conquered by Kentucky Fried Chicken, what you do, you create a clone of Kentucky Fried Chicken and you call it Kakamega Fried Chicken. And you use that brand, you build it up, use that corporate to invade each and every other African nation so that you have your Kakamega Fried Chicken in Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, all the way to South Africa. This is what you're supposed to do if you're to create wealth. You don't allow Kentucky Fried Chicken into your market. No, you clone it and then you multiply it and then you send it as an invading army to all these other territories and you bring back the profits into your own country. And you systematically do this for every product that you can reasonably produce. That's how masculine energy manifests in the economic and political sphere. It's the desire to dominate, the desire to control and to invade. Effeminate energy desires the exact opposite, to be invaded, to be controlled, and to be penetrated. So when the men of a country are demanding to be penetrated by the men of another country, what does that mean? What is the psychology of that desire to be penetrated? So this is the sort of men that we have in Kenya. And when you take so many effeminized men and you put them in a nation, that nation automatically becomes a third world country because that nation or those men will not produce anything because they don't desire to produce anything. They will not create their own products. They will not create their own brands or their own logos because that would be masculine. And because they don't create anything, they end up becoming very poor and getting dominated by any other nation around them. A good example is the late stage Roman Empire. At that time, As the Romans were beginning to collapse, what happened was very simple. The men became very effeminate. They became obsessed, for many reasons, with food and homosexuality. And the more they became effeminized, the more weaker Rome as an empire became. And with time, they were conquered by the other surrounding nations, which were full of men who were very masculine. Therefore, in the case of Kenya, because the men are very effeminate, it is very easy for any foreigner to show up and control and dominate Kenyan men. Do you remember the case of the Chinese restaurant owner who was beating up his Kenyan worker like a child? There were no protests at the Chinese embassy. Do you also remember the case where a Chinese man called the president of Kenya, who controls armies, called him a monkey to his face? And there were no public protests, there were virtually no complaints, and that Chinese man left Kenya without a hair on his head being touched by anyone. And do you know who he was talking to when he was calling the president a monkey? He had just been arrested and he was talking to the police, and the police did not even slap him. This is the level of disrespect that Kenyan men have for each other. That anyone can dominate, insult any Kenyan man at any time with zero consequences. Because Kenyan men give that effeminate energy of desiring to be dominated and to be controlled and to be penetrated by any foreigner. The president himself, who had been insulted, did not do anything. He stood down despite having armies, and the Chinese man got away with it. In this world of feminized men, you will find Kenyan men desiring everything that is foreign, praising everything that is foreign. So you'll find Kenyan men boasting about foreign-made products. For example, many Kenyans boast about Louis Vuitton. These are foreign brands. You find them boasting about having a German machine because they don't desire to have anything of themselves. They don't desire to have a Kenyan machine that they can boast about, because effeminate men really don't produce anything. They don't manufacture anything. They don't create any brands or any corporates. They don't create armies that go out to conquer anyone, because they ultimately want to be conquered. And so they boast when they are conquered. They boast in the conqueror. So that's why they will praise a foreign brand. But they will never praise a Kenyan brand, because there is no Kenyan brand. Because the idea of creating brands or creating companies or corporates, which then spread to other countries, that is conquest. You understand? That is literally invasion and conquest. And effeminate men don't desire to invade or to conquer anyone. So that's why they never create brands. That's why they will not create a Kenyan machine that we can then go and sell in other countries and say, look, we've conquered Uganda, we've conquered Angola, we've conquered Tanzania, we've conquered Zambia, we've conquered all these nations with our corporates, with our machines, with our brands. That is masculine energy. And the men are not masculine in Kenya, they are feminine. So it would go against that basic effeminate nature to create brands, logos, companies, products, and invade any other country with those products. They will not want to do that, but they ultimately will desire to be conquered by products coming from the outside. This is the reason why the government that is in Nairobi, which is ruled by Kenyan men, went to Sweden to import buses. Now, these buses are part of a government program to introduce rapid public transport throughout the cities. Now, I want you to think about that. Sweden has a population of 5 million people, and these 5 million people are able to make buses. Kenya has a population of 47 million people. These 47 million people are almost completely useless. They can't even make a spoon, let alone a bus. This is called feminized energy, manifesting itself in economic backwardness, where the men don't act like men, they act like women. So that even a tiny nation like Sweden, with a population of 5 million, is able to conquer the market of Kenya with a population of 47 million people. The other way that feminized men manifest their femininity is in the idea of solidarity and support. When the West started putting sanctions on Zimbabwe, you did not see Kenyan men go out and demonstrate in support and solidarity of Zimbabwe. In fact, quite the opposite. You only see Kenyan men showing solidarity with non-Africans, because slaves generally don't show solidarity to other slaves. I remember there was a time There was an incident that happened in Palestine between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and Kenyan Muslims went out to demonstrate to show solidarity with the Palestinians. But the same Kenyan Muslims have never gone to demonstrate and show solidarity with fellow Africans when they get killed brutally in Saudi Arabia. Again, slaves never show solidarity to other slaves. And do you remember the other time when there was a health crisis in England and the government of Kenya sent millions of shillings worth of flowers for free to the British in order to show solidarity with them? The same government never sent anything, not flowers, not guns, not support to the black people of West Papua who are being slaughtered by the Indonesian military. Again, slaves never show solidarity to other slaves. And this is more than just government policy. It goes to every single man in Kenya out there, because I remember there was a time there was a terrorist attack in France, and many Kenyan men put on their Facebook profile a sticker that says, "I stand with France." But you will never see these same Kenyan men putting a sticker on their Facebook profile saying, "I stand with Zimbabwe. I stand with the people of West Papua." Never. Effeminate men never do things to suggest that they would conquer or fight for anything. If they are to fight, they are fighting strictly for their master. This is how effeminate energy amongst a group of, in a male population, manifests even in foreign policy, even in economic policy. So effeminate poor populations never create corporations that operate outside their countries. All rich nations have many corporations that work outside their countries. Now these corporations, they lie to poor people. Now they lie to the effeminate men and tell them that these corporations are called multinationals. There's nothing multinational about them. These are wholly owned European, American, and Chinese companies. Masculine nations never allow the economies to be controlled by outsiders. But feminine nations delight when the economies are controlled by foreigners. For example, in Kenya, people don't mind that Coca-Cola is owned by the Americans. They don't mind that Kenya Breweries is owned by the British. They don't mind that Safaricom is a British company. In fact, they don't mind and appear to be proud that almost 70% of the domestic economy is controlled by foreigners. This is the same reason why you'll never find Kenyan men boasting about Kenyan brands, boasting about Kenyan machines, because Kenyan men fundamentally don't produce anything. Manufacturing is limited to Jua Kali. Jua Kali products are not exported. They are not branded. And Kenyan men don't boast in Jua Kali products. And because Kenyan men don't produce much, the country remains in poverty. And all the men are always looking at each other, wondering, what do we do? What do we do? And the solution they always come up with, is always the same. So they say to themselves, we should get penetrated more. So you'll hear the government saying, whoa, we need more foreign investments. No, you don't need more foreign investment. You need to become the foreign investor. You need to go to other countries, conquer them with your brands and your corporates, and then bring back the profits to your country. That's how you become rich, by controlling economies far away from your country and not allowing anyone to control your own economy. But that requires masculine energy, and you will not get that from Kenyan men, because going to foreign countries, conquering, setting up businesses, penetrating those countries is masculine. And Kenyan men are feminine, desiring to be conquered, desiring to be penetrated. And so they can never become rich. And this is the reason why in Kenya there is no Kakamega fried chicken, but there is a Kentucky fried chicken.